Okay, well, good evening. Welcome to a really cold UK. The video I'm going to do today is all about whether to go for a battery pack or a dynamo. So this is a conundrum that I've had for quite some time for the Mason Boker that I bought, looking at whether I buy and Hunt wheels who support and do a lot of the do all the wheels for Mason. They do a Super Dura with 32 spokes front and rear, and the front one is a Dynamo. Do I go for that Dynamo, or do I not bother and use battery packs? So this video, the bits in a second, will go through the detail and looking at the numbers about whether it suits me or not, and you can glean from that whatever you can that helps you make your decision. But I think ultimately it comes down to what you're going to use your Dynamo for, if you're going to get one, what sort of power you need, what sort of riding you're going to do, and also what sort of lights you're going to have. So I thought I'd start off just by talking about the lights that I personally am going to use. A little bit mucky lens, there we go. So the lights I'm going to use, I got an Exposure Strada 800, brilliant wide angle light, lots of different settings. So on the underside there you've got a whole different load of programs that you can use, and this one here, I'll probably go for the medium, is what I normally use, so 10 hours on the program that I use for that. Really good lights, but 10 hours life. Worst case, I think maybe 7 hours, worst case. Next one for the front, I've always got a helmet light for the, if you're going fast down a bad track. This one is a Cat's Eye Volt 500 XC. Really good. It doesn't fit particularly well, but a really good spotlight. I don't use this, so it only gets used about a third of the time, really. Have I got that on? But it's just there, ready to go when I need that extra light, that extra spotlight. On the rear, I've got a Cat's Eye X2. It has two LEDs. There we go. Put on one side, turn one side on. It's got a little pulsing one side. On the other side, got a bright. I can then flick either side as I wish. So I've got all sorts of combinations. But that is a fantastic light, and I've had that for quite a long time. That's 80 looms. Pretty good bit of kit. I've always got a safety light on the back. This is a real cheapy light. I think I probably bought it in Halfords. Real cheap bit of kit. It's got 4 LEDs. Only 3 are working nowadays, and it's either there, lower power, flashing, off. That's it. Really basic, but that's my safety light. I also, on the back of my helmet, have one of these. It's got one of those flat batteries, CR2032 I think it is. Uses 2 of those batteries in the back. Cat's Eye again, really good bit of kit. Goes on the back of my helmet. Press, single light, press again, fast flashing, press again, slow flashing. So that's my emergency backup. That's 30 hours on the low flashing. So really good bit of kit to have up your sleeve. Finally, 2 bits of kit that I'm not going to talk about in the video, but which I bought recently, are the Exposure Joystick Carbon for the helmet to replace the Volt that I've got. That's up to, I think it's 1,000 or 1,100 looms. Amazing bit of kit, and a really good purchase. £12, so about $15. Cat's Eye Omni 5 LEDs. It's got 2 AA batteries. Important one, we're talking about whether to go for a power bank idea or the Dynamo. This just uses 2 AAA's batteries. Again, simple, flash, 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 but 120 hours of flashing. That is my new safety light. But those last 2, not going to talk about those in the video. I can look at the other options. So anyway, video about whether you go for the battery pack option or you go for the Dynamo. Tough decision. It took me a long time to work out, but here's how I worked it out. Okay, well now we've had a look at the devices that I've got to charge. What we'll do is have a quick comparison between the Dynamo and power banks, and just a few numbers so you're aware. So there we go, we've got the option of the Dynamo hub. So it goes in your front wheel, it has to be built into the wheel. There's then a wire pickoff which runs up to the Dynamo, up to your light, which can then run from there back onto a rear light possibly, if that's what you want to do, and you can also run off from there onto a USB charging point, and really you're just looking at charging at one USB charging point. Relatively heavy, adds about 300 kilograms just for the hub and the extra little bits as well, I suppose, but then the light that you get doesn't have to have a battery built into it because it's obviously charging automatically, so you save a little bit of weight there. A little bit more complicated to fit. You talk about these here, so the power banks, small, relatively cheap nowadays. Lots of people get hold of them, obviously a lot. Really good option, simple, cheap. So it depends how often you're going to use them and how much power you're going to need, but that's what we'll have a look at now. So you need to understand what power you're going to need to charge, so really what devices you've got. We're going to have a look at a little adventure that I've got planned, and just talk through the numbers there, so I'll just use that as an example. Obviously you'll need to fit it to yours, so whereas I may veer in favour of one of these options, another option might fit another scenario. So if all you're going to do is commute in and out of work every day, then actually the battery pack probably doesn't even need, you just charge the lights, or you go for the Dynamo. But if you're going to ride long distance with hardly any kit, hardly any devices to charge, but over an area where there's just no hotels or anything else to stop at, then actually you're going to be better off probably with the Dynamo. So you're going to have to work out where you fit in all of this. So we're going to compare the options, and I'm going to look at what power I would need if I was doing the Transatlantic Way bike race, which would just be a different set of requirements. So the considerations then: how much power you're going to need, how long and where you're going to ride, which is really important. What support is there around hotels, B&B options to plug in and get your fix of power, and when you're going to ride. If you're going to ride throughout the day only, then great, well you can charge a USB, but you're not going to need the lights. Whereas if you're riding at night almost all the time, then you can charge your lights, but you're not going to be able to charge any other devices. So it's important to think roughly when you think you're going to ride. And the numbers I'm going to come up with are approximate. They're just to give an idea about, and the whole thing is just to give you an idea which way is the best for you. How long are you going to stop for? If you're only going to stop for 1 hour at a time, then you're probably not going to have the ability to go and charge stuff up. I'd suggest that you're probably not going to be able to sustain that level of exercise, and most of the time you're going to be able to stop for long enough at some point to charge devices. Think about the terrain. If it's really hilly, then you're going to be slowing right down up those hills. And while you might think, well, I'm going to be going slow up the hills, but I'm going to be really fast down the hills and be able to charge lots, it's more about the time that you're going to be charging. You're going to be spending longer going slower, so you're nowhere near going to be able to charge as much, and that speed is really important when it comes to the Dynamo charging. And is it for fun or is it a race? If it's for fun and you can handle hanging around for an extra hour because you couldn't find somewhere to plug in, then that's not a big deal. But if it's a race, it is a big deal. So that's the trip I'm going to do. I'm going from Plymouth up here. I'm going to head down on a ferry down to Santander, get off there about 12 o'clock. I'm then going to do a 75-mile ride through the mountains here, spend the nights camping wild or wherever I can find. Another 75-mile the next day. Because it's hilly, I'm not going to push myself on the first at the start of the ride, start of the trip. Then got 150 miles into Bordeaux, possibly get a hotel there, I'm not sure. Another 155, day 4, 150 miles, and another 100, about 140 miles. And then day 7 will be hanging around locally, and then maybe it's about a 10-mile cycle up to the ferry port. And that last day is to give me some flex in here if something goes wrong, and then ferry back home. So 709 miles, 15 miles an hour, that's about the ride time. And I always have a look at the distance that I'm going to go, sorry, the height I'm going to climb and the distance. I divide, take this number here and I divide it by that number there, and I have a look at the number, what it turns out as. If it's over 100 feet per mile, then it's mountainous effectively. Anything over 50 is hilly, progressively more and more hilly, and anything less than 50 really is flat and is not a big deal at all. Okay, so 709 miles, 75 miles per day in the mountainous areas, then 150 miles a day across France. So I'm just hitting some numbers to give you something give us something to talk about. So 150 miles a day, 15 miles an hour on average. I think that's quite reasonable. 10 hours riding, so approximately about 12 hours on the bike, because there's going to be a couple of hours of stopping, starting, sorting this and that out. So about 12 hours on the bike, but 10 hours riding time. So this is quite an easy event. You know, if I was doing something really going for it, I'd be doing 18 hours on the bike, 16 to 18 hours I think on the bike. So 10 hours riding time, 12 hours on the bike, possibly up to 4 hours riding per night. That'll be a late finish or an early start, and that's, so again, I'm assuming 4 hours of this is going to be at night. Okay. Mobile phone, 3000 milliamp hours. Okay, that's a Samsung. Your phone, I can go and look into my phone, that tells me how big the battery is, and I need to charge that every day, so 3000 milliamp hours. My Garmin Edge 1030, 3300 milliamp hours is the battery. Battery lasts nicely for 16 hours, is pretty good on the settings that I've got. I'll need 12 hours of that, because that's how long it's probably going to be turned on for. So 2475 milliamp hours. I've got a Brighton Rider 330, that's how big the battery is, 1300 milliamp hours. It's got 36 hours capacity, which is fantastic, but obviously I only need 12 hours, so 435 milliamp hours per day. So day energy, just under 6000 milliamp hours. If I'm going to ride at night, I've got an Exposure 800, which is my sort of floodlight. I can ride most roads with this, and I don't need anything else. Normally, it's a pretty damn good light. On the program that I use, and a medium power, comfortably 7 hours is what it can do. 8-9 hours, actually I think it can probably do, but I'll assume it can only do 7. I only need 4 of those hours, so 3315 milliamp hours. I've got a Cat's Eye Volt 600, which will go on my helmet. The battery is 2200 milliamp hours. It's 12 hours basically. I need about 4 hours. 735 milliamp hours. It's a pretty good bit of kit, but that's when I go onto the low spotlight setting. It's the 12 hours, it'll last for 12 hours. Okay, Cat's Eye Rapid X3, actually it's the X2 that I've got, but anyway, 1500 milliamp hours, so it's got 16 hours life on flash. I'll just need 4 hours of that, so that's how much power I'll need there. And I got a second flasher, which is a real cheapie, which is a fantastic bit of kit. Just works all the time. Yeah, 6 hour battery, comfortable. I think it's around about 800 milliamp hours is what it is. I'm only looking for 4 hours, so that's how much power I need there. So, and that's total night energy is yeah, basically 5000 milliamp hours. Okay, so each day I need 5610 milliamp hours for the day riding bit of my gadgets for the day, and then I need just under 5000 for the lights. So total there, just under 11,000 milliamp hours is what I need per day to supply. So if I'm using a power bank, and that's the power that I need from that power bank to cover each day, I plan to ride for 3 days and then recharge. So I need 30,000 milliamp hours ish, actually about just under 33,000. Okay, so let's assume that I got two options here. The first is to have one, and I do have one of these. I've got a single 30,000 milliamp hour battery pack, and it's a really nice bit of kit, but it takes 12 to 14 hours to charge. It's only got one charging point in it. It's got 3 USB outputs, so I can charge 3 devices, but I've only got one charging point, so I can only plug it into one plug, if you see what I mean. So it takes a long time to charge. Great for the family, but if I'm going away with the family, but not good when I need quick charging. Option 2, which is is my favoured option out of these, is 3 10,000 milliamp hour batteries. And I take 3 because what I can do into one plug, I can charge all 3 at one time much faster, and we'll talk more about that right at the end. So I need 4. So I need fast charging, and that'll be over about 4 hours maximum. All this weighs about 700 grams for the batteries and the fast charger plug and the cables. Okay, so we've already established the amount of power that we need overall to cover the day and night. But if we're using a Dynamo, we need our 5,910 milliamp hours to cover all the day gadgets, to keep our addiction going. We then need 1,100 milliamp hours for the second helmet light and the, if you like, the safety light to the back. I always have 2 lights at the back, so one of my safety lights. So at the front, I've got my Dynamo light. I need a second helmet light, so I need some extra power for that I need to charge up. And at night I've got a Dynamo that's going to charge, that's going to run my rear light, and then I need my safety light as well. So because I've got the Dynamo running and charging my main rear light and front light, means I only need 7,000 milliamp hours per day in terms of charging. So 10 hours moving time with a 3 watt Dynamo after losses. For USB at 5 volts, that's 500 milliamp hours. What does that mean? That means 500 milliamp hours is what I can charge at times 10. 5,000 milliamp hours is what I can charge up to, but I need a good speed to do that, and so I think I'm only going to be able to charge actually about 90% of the time. I'm going to be able to be charging. So you might think, well, if I'm going up a hill slowly, I'm going to be going down a hill really fast, so why isn't that enough? Well, because you spend longer going slower. So if you do the maths, it doesn't quite work out as you might expect. So 90% of the time I'm just not going to be charging. I think that's a reasonable figure for an assumption. I'm also going to lose 20% power from circuitry at 25 kilometers per hour. So only 80% of the power that I get, 80% of that 4,500 milliamp hours is going to be stored, which leaves me only with 3,600 milliamp hours, and that's assuming all the riding is for charging. And of course some of this will be at night, where I'm charging the light and not the battery. So my big assumption here is, of course, that I've already said that I'll be moving for 10 hours, but then on the other side of it, I've been saying 4 hours of that is going to be at night when I wouldn't be able to charge. So really I'm playing with the figures here. I'm giving the Dynamo the best chance. I'm bending the figures as much in the Dynamo's favour as possible, to give it the best chance of competing against the battery pack, which ultimately is, I think, where things are going. So I need the 7,000 milliamp hours, but can only generate 3,600 milliamp hours in charging throughout the day, assuming that the entire day was what I was able to charge at, best case. So I'm going to need an additional battery. I'm still going to need 3,400 milliamp hours, which I need to get through charging from the mains. So I'm still going to need to plug in. So the Dynamo can on its own power a single lights, so front and rear single lights, during the night, and in the daytime I can charge my phone plus a basic navigation device, so something like my Brighton 330, which is really basic. So I could charge my phone and that, but so I can't really add on my my Edge 1030, so I couldn't charge that, and I couldn't have any second lights. So really, you can. So the Dynamo can do it, but I really am not taking the power that I really want to take. And of course, I'm going to be slower because the Dynamo takes that power. So my little bit of maths, I'm going to be half mile per hour slower for an 80 kilogram rider. Again, I'm giving it as much chance as I can. I'm nowhere near 80. I'm more like 90 kilograms. So assuming 80 kilograms even, it's still half a mile an hour slower, putting out 150 watts, which is reasonable for me. So if I was doing the transatlantic way bike race, assuming I do 5 hours sleeping, 4 hours of that would be charging, 16 hours riding, the rest would be faffing around. That's assuming June sort of time. That's also what I'm assuming there, so a little bit less time, more time charging, less time needing the lights. Dynamo means no power bank, so I could, with a Dynamo only, charge my phone and my Garmin 1030 and my backup lights. I'd have to use a CR 2032 batteries for the second rear safety light, but as I've already done, I've moved to a Cat's Eye Omni 5, which uses 2 AA batteries and has a 120-hour battery life on flashing. So actually I could get away with it. I could get away with the Dynamo here, charge my phone, the 1030, my backup front light. Oh no, sorry, there you go, no second front light in the sums there. So I've got my rear safety, my second rear safety light, but I've got no front second light. I've just got my Dynamo light. Yeah, so my second safety light is on the needing some battery power, which I use my CR 2032, and then I'm obviously taking some rear lighting off the Dynamo and providing some front lighting. However, I could also use a power bank. I just have to charge every 3 days, which is an option. So really here you're thinking about, if you're doing the transatlantic way race, then with lots of B&Bs around the place, yeah, you can stop in every 3 days and pop into a hotel and do it. If you're doing something like the IndyPac, Indian Pacific Wheel Race, you're going across the Nullarbor, there may not be any hotels there to pop into, and that may not be an option. So you're really now talking about what your options are to stop over, so if you're doing a race. So a Dynamo is definitely more appealing now when I get to the transatlantic way race, and certainly if I was doing the Nullarbor, the IndyPac, but equally I can just use my power banks and achieve it. There's a little bit of reliance there on the hotels. So options: power bank, just under 11,000 milliamp hours is what I'd need. 4 hours charging from a plug, gives me power for 3 days. Slightly heavier, but a lot more simple. Faster, there's a half mile an hour in there roughly. It's the best option if you're a power junkie. Dynamo, I still need 3,600 milliamp hours from the Dynamo, which is what I can charge from the Dynamo. I still need 3,400 milliamp hours. I'm going to need to get from the mains power somehow. But the good thing is I've always got some power, so if I really was up shit creek, then I can still survive without too much of a problem, although I haven't got quite the power that I'm after. I still need to charge at least a 10,000 milliamp hour battery pack, so every 3 days. But the Dynamo is definitely worth it if you've got minimal gadgets, plus you're only using a single front light and a single rear light. I'd always recommend a safety light on the rear as well, a second safety light. No Garmin 1030 plus a big smartphone. Not sure what I'm getting out there. No backup lights. Yeah, so if you've got a big Garmin 1030, then you probably don't want to be doing a Dynamo only. If you've got a big smartphone, maybe not as well. And like I say, no backup lights, but I'd always use a rear safety light. But you can use a AA battery or some of those smaller batteries for that. So the option I'm going for is power bank for my main trip. which I think will cover me for if I want to do a transatlantic way down the future. I'm going for 3 of these. Amazing bit of kit, slim, really good power, and what I've really gone for them is because of their weight. They are lightweight, 25 pounds, so for 75 pounds or about $85 I can have 3 of these things, and with this little puppy, which is fast charging, I can get all 3 of those plugged in, and at 4 hours I can have 3 days worth of power all charged up. So that's the option I'm going to go for. I gave the Dynamo the best chance I could. I think there are definitely good times for the Dynamo, but just not for me at the moment. So it depends what you're doing. If you're doing a race and there's not a lot of places to charge, a Dynamo is the way to go. But I think from anything, if I'm realistic about what sort of things I'm going to do, I can never really see a reason why I couldn't comfortably survive with some power banks. And so that's the plan I've gone for. Okay, that's the end of the video. So hopefully you've got an idea now whether you're going to go for power banks or for dynamos. I don't think there's one answer. I think you need to look at what you're going to use it for, and what is important to you. For me, it turns out the power bank I think is probably the best option. So that's where I'm going to go. But hopefully this video gives you a little bit of a clue as to the sorts of things to consider, and therefore hopefully you make the right decision. But I think you need to look not just at what you're about to do, but what you're going to do in the future. But I certainly would never write off dynamos, and I'm very serious about looking at that again in the future, just not yet. Anyway, hope you enjoyed the video. Ciao.